It's the Final Word Champions Trophy Daily, brought to you by McInnes Whiskey. More about how you can get 20% off your investments with them later on. But first of all, where are we? We're at Dubai International Stadium for the 12th and final group match. It's between two nailed-on semi-finalists. We knew this at the start of the game. They were already through. What were they playing for? They were playing to determine who they were going to be playing against in their semi-finals. And to tell you about that match between India and New Zealand, it's Fids.
Yeah, so New Zealand got 3 wickets early, needed an intervention from Shreyas Iyer and with a little help from Akshar Patel to get India going in their innings. They had a few late boundaries from Hardik Pandya, ended up with 249. And then, New Zealand, their chase kind of never really got to a place where they were confident. Kane Williamson played a really good lone hand, scored 81, but the pitch was hugely turning for all of India's spinners. Varun Chakravarti was an absolute menace. So was Ravindra Jadeja. And so was Akshar Patel. It always felt like 249 was a pretty solid score, given this is already a used pitch. India defended it. 45-run victory in the end, pretty comfortable. They'll end up playing Australia in 2 days' time here. South Africa, who arrived this morning to Dubai, probably didn't even get a time for a round of golf, which Marco Jansen was excited about before they had to head back to Pakistan, and they'll play New Zealand in Lahore on Thursday.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
okay. That'll do. Yeah, you're pretty much there. You're pretty much there.
We blew through the 30-second...
Oh, you did. Yeah, you went way past the 30-second barrier. So, yes, absolutely. The issue here is about the golf, as far as I'm concerned, because South Africa, they flew in today, right, to Dubai. Because don't forget, everybody, that this tournament has been arranged. It's hosted by Pakistan, of course. But everybody has to arrive in Dubai because they don't know whether or not they're going to be playing against India or not. So Australia arrived here a day or so ago. They played golf this morning. I know this for a fact. I believe Glenn Maxwell was teeing off at 7 o'clock this morning. South Africa, because they didn't finish their game against England until late yesterday, they flew in today, and I believe that whoever was going to go back about noon today, yeah. But I believe that whoever it was that was going home was going to go home tonight.
Yes, like 4 a.m.
like 4 a.m.
something like that. Yeah.
So if they unpacked, which I doubt, they will now be packing again to go back.
Are there good, and maybe some listeners can figure this out for us? Are there any golf courses in Lahore that they can scratch that itch with? The thing about the British colonists, who were obviously, Lahore was one of their spots. They would have made, they leave golf courses and generational trauma everywhere they go.
That's right, yeah.
So surely a golf course has been at some point in Lahore. I don't know whether they've turned it to something else. I'm sure they will.
Don't worry, because there's a backup, because there is a golf course in Multan.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what they all rave about in Multan. They've gone to play golf in Multan. Enough of the four-letter word. We are, of course, only partially jesting. It does seem to me that it's not exactly fulfilling the sustainability brief, but, it's what it is. So we know some things now. We know that India are playing against Australia, so Australia will remain in Dubai. It is a rematch of the World Cup final. We know that New Zealand are playing against South Africa. Before we go into the details, the weeds, our preview, if you like, we'll spend a little bit of time on this game because there were some interesting things. It was always, I felt, a kind of weird game to assess while you're watching it because it was a dead rubber, if you can have such a thing, when both sides are going through and they know where they're going to be playing. I've asked all my colleagues this across today and on commentary, who would you rather be playing against? And they scratch their heads and then they go, well, there's nothing much in it, but if there was anything in it, probably would rather not play Australia. And the winners were going to play Australia. So whether this was a race to the bottom, I don't know, because India scored fewer runs than we anticipated, and New Zealand, who have hitherto just managed their batting so well, fell apart in the teeth of Varun Chakravarti, who picked up 5 for. But I think it could be because, and this is perhaps the most interesting thing to come out of today, the pitch. Now, you've been out to remind yourself, as have I, it's unclear what other pitches are available. This was a used pitch, and my goodness me, it turned. It absolutely turned. And if you were Jadeja bowling on that, you were loving life because you were pitching it on middle and leg, bowling at 96 kilometers an hour, and it was turning square.
Yeah.
If you're Varun Chakravarti, they have no idea which way you're turning it anyway, and he was firing some of them in.
I
You've
mean,
then got Akshar Patel, right? And you've got Kuldeep Yadav. I mean, a four-pronged spin attack on that surface, it won't be exactly the same surface, but whatever surface is used, you imagine will turn.
Yeah, well, I mean, that Varun Chakravarti ball to get Mitchell Santner, that was seriously quick, and it seriously turned. That is, a huge sign that this is a used pitch. And actually, India did quite well to get to 249.
And it looks like there's going to be not just a semi-final, but the way India stack up. Now, of course, Australia can win. We know that they can do that. They won the World Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
But the way India stack up on this surface, they're going to be heavy favourites.
Yeah.
So there's every chance there's going to have to be 2 more games played out here.
Yeah. The pitch that I can't see a pitch on that square that's being prepared for a game that's 2 days from now. That is not a used one. So my guess is they will use the pitch that was that they used for the India-Pakistan game, the kind of very center.
That was okay, that one, wasn't it? That was fine.
It didn't turn as much. So this was the pitch that they used for the Bangladesh India game. So where there was turn even in that first match. So the with luck, the Pakistan-India pitch holds up a little bit better than we saw this one hold up today. But then where do they go for the final? That I'm not sure. Those are questions we'll have to ask and get answered by the ICC over the next few days. But yeah, I dare say the semi-final will have a big turning pitch too. And whether Harshit Rana, we've seen the last of him in this tournament. I don't know. India might just go with 4 spinners from now till the end. Yeah.
Surely they will. I mean, you can't leave out Varun Chakravarti now. And the gloriousness of their attack is that they've got in Akshar Patel and Ravindra Jadeja, 2 guys who are legitimately could bat in their top 6, but can also legitimately bowl 10 overs. So they are a gigantic part of their bowling lineup. And they've got in Kuldeep, a guy who can turn the ball both ways. So that's surely the way they go. I mean, look, I'll run you quickly through the details of the game, because in a sense, the game, it wasn't that it was a damp squib. It was a fascinating kind of game, but it was also, because it was inconsequential, it was quite hard to read the runes. But what essentially happened is New Zealand won the toss, and they do what everybody does against India, which is they put them in, because Indians have got a very high ceiling when they're chasing. You kind of feel that they could chase anything. But when they're setting, sometimes they can go a little bit more slowly. So New Zealand wanted to exploit that. It worked out well for them. They picked up 3 quick wickets. Their seamers were really doing the damage. Matt Henry was superb. He ended up with 5 for 42. We saw another wonder catch from Glenn Phillips. I mean, was it a little bit less wonderful than the incredible left-handed catch? Very possibly. It was a right-handed catch. If you put them side by side, it would look like a mirror image.
No, it's almost like God touching Adam's hand on the ceiling of the if you put.
Oh yeah.
This is Team Shuffle. Just Glenn Phillips touching Glenn Phillips.
Yeah, which is I kind of he was pretty remarkable again today. And it's not just actually with his catching; it's just the general ground fielding. New Zealand, I believe, have now taken 22 out of 23 chances. The one drop was when Devon Conway, I think, ran in for a really tough catch and didn't get it in the first game. So, we're being really picky here. To me, it's basically 100% success rate. 9 of the wickets fell. 1 was LBW. 8 were catches. Shreyas Iyer, 79. Akshar Patel, 42. They put on 98 for the 4th wicket. That was essentially what saved India from what could have been an early collapse of biblical proportions and got them going. They never really went quickly. New Zealand's spin attack doesn't spin it as much as the Indian spinners do, but they do enough with it, and Santner was getting it to turn a mile. Today, you'd say Bracewell probably had his least brilliant game, none for 56 off 9, but he bowled a lot of balls to established batters. There was some late order hitting from Hardik Pandya, who got a runner ball 45. India never got away. 250 felt like it would be gettable. And then, of course, we started to see what happens with those 4 spinners. It was all about Kane Williamson. Nobody else got any runs. We wondered if he'd become the 4th Kiwi to get a ton in this tournament. He didn't. He ran past one, was stumped, and that was the end of their challenge. A word for Rohit's captaincy, though, Fidel, because when you have four spinners, it's all very well having four spinners, but he rotated them like he was playing an extended T20.
Yeah.
They bowled like not all the time. I think there was one substantial spell from Akshar early on, but thereafter, it was two over spells. I mean, even when Chakravarti got a wicket, off he came. In came Akshar. I mean, the challenge was brilliant.
It was almost like he was trying to overwhelm New Zealand's batting heads. Like they were like, okay, so Chakravarti, we have to watch out for I don't know how many deliveries from him. Then you're just facing Ravindra. They just never got to a place where they could settle. And on a track like this, the spinners don't need to settle. They just need to do control things. They need to do the things that, the spot bowling that they do for hours and hours in the nets. This is the exact kind of pitch where that pays off, because all you have to do is bowl your variations, land it on the spot that you've trained to land it on, and let the pitch do the rest. So, that was just, Rohit's captained, I don't know how many matches on really, really big turners. He knows what he's doing. His spinners certainly know what they're doing. And it was a fun little, it was a departure from regular kind of captaincy, but it was definitely fun to watch, and it had the effect of anyway, this is the kind of surface where a batter can never really truly feel in, and that was just heightened by the fact that Rohit just never let anybody get used to any of his bowlers.
Couple of questions before we hit the Hall of Fame. Now, we know that it was India's turn to have a bit of good fortune in an ICC tournament by, having three games in the same place, and then knowing that if they got the semi-final, they'd play it here, and then if they got the final, they'd play it here. And, everybody will get their turn doing that, I'm sure, over the years. This was India's turn. For New Zealand, if they can pull off victory against South Africa, will having played here against India be to their advantage or their detriment after being kind of undone today by 45 runs? And they, in their chase, look, they were in it for periods. Yeah. But I don't know why, but I just felt even at like 98 for 3, you just thought, they're going to get stifled here. They weren't proactive enough in the opening phase against the Seamers. They didn't try and go over the top enough to try to get to sort of 60, 65 in the power play to get themselves ahead of the game for the inevitable squeeze. Is this going to be a morale damaging thing, or do Kiwis not have morale? Are Kiwis just like completely morale-less? They're just practical.
I don't see losing here having any effect on them whatsoever. They're just not that kind of team. And anyway, we weren't seeing all the gears from them today. We saw that in the field. Ben Phillips didn't get an over. Even when the lefties were batting, they were trying some things. This is not a team that goes into tournaments and thinks we need to win everyone and we need to get momentum. They're like, hey, let's sneak into the semis and then see what we can do from there. Like they're very much a tournament team that's built around effectiveness rather than excellence. They want to just get the job done. They don't need to look fancy doing it. That is how they've been wired since 2015, when they've had this incredible run of getting into semis and onwards. And I don't see it being an issue at all. They will, however, use this as data collecting for, if they end up in the final against India here, they will have collected enough data from this match to, rethink their plans, to change up little bits of what they do the New Zealand things, like go deep into the nerdy kind of stats archives and figure out some funky little plans for a batter that they haven't tried before. Those are the kinds of things that they will use this game for. And I don't think I think India will feel much better. India will go in. India, the kind of team that wants to feel good heading into those big business ends. New Zealand don't care.
Well, Matt Henry ended up with 5. Varun Chakravarti ended up with 5. So it was a pitch that all bowlers and all bowling types actually prospered on. It might not be that it's just a spinner's paradise. Second and final question on this. Now we know the semi-final lineup. I don't want an explanation. I want a prediction. Or who's the finalists?
That's the hard one. I do think that at some point Australia's not having their A bowling attack will hurt them, and I think India will probably win here. The other one, that's so hard to tell. I would say New Zealand. I would say replay of this match come final on Sunday.
I tend to agree. Right. We're off to the break, where you're going to hear a bit about our pals at CBUS Super, and then we are back with the Hall of Fame.
Okay, let's go quick.
Welcome back. It's the Hall of Fame with McInnes Whiskey. They specialize in sourcing branded single malt Scotch whiskey casks for investment. You get together with your pals, or if you're wealthy enough, you buy a cask of whiskey. That costs you about £3,500 upwards from there. You invest in it, it gets better, it gets more delicious, it earns you more money. Eventually, you drink it or you sell it, and you get rich off the profits or you get slightly squiffy off the taste. It's entirely up to you. We thoroughly recommend it. All the details are in the show notes, but we are giving our listeners and watchers a special 20% discount. ICC Whiskey Cricket 20 at the checkout with McInnesWhiskey.com. What is your Hall of Fame?
Yeah, so the obvious one would be the Glenn Phillips catch, but as that, it's just the second time he's reeled that off, so we already know all about that. The actual moment is, I think it was somewhere after the 40th over. Kane Williamson was fielding at backward point. Hardik Pandya hits one really hard, I think to his right. Williamson makes a fantastic diving stop. Next ball, he cuts it, but straight at Kane, and he has nowhere to take his hands. He gets whacked very hard in the hands, makes the stop, and then does this kind of little jig thing that's kind of like very, dad trying to make their toddler laugh area. It's just slapstick comedy, just to show the whole stadium that, he's suffering, that his hands have been hit really hard and they're stinging. It raised I was in the stands at the time, raised a massive laugh. I think you had.
I giggled. I mean, he did the whole lot. He did the sort of hands and feet and
legs,
So it was 1920s, like, black and white.
Exactly. It's like what's a bit Buster Keaton bit or a Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin. Call him Chaplin.
That's the fella.
Yeah. So that was super fun. I love those little kind of moments of humanness, especially from Williamson, because he's,
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. My one is a moment of massive inaptitude from Varun Chakravarti. I thoroughly enjoyed it because he took 5 for, so it doesn't matter. We can bag him a little bit for the one thing he did wrong. Free hit, ball's hit up in the air, down towards him. He doesn't need to go for the catch. It's almost like he's forgotten that if you take the catch, it's not out. So he goes for the catch and manages to kick it miles. And as a colleague of mine said on commentary, as Alex Hartley said, it's a bit like, when you see a really small child, and toddler again, try to get to the ball, and then they accidentally kick it and it moves away from them, and they go after it and they kick it again and they kick it, and they can never bend down and pick it up. There was something kind of hilariously inept about that from a guy who completely outbowled, well, almost everybody else today, apart from Matt Henry. He bowled like a god. He covered to the side, and yet he reminded us of the natural human frailties that we all possess, especially when we're in the field. Well,
very similar themes in both those both those halls of fame.
Toddler stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up there. You've got to get to a press conference.
Yeah.
We're going to be back for the semi-final. It's in 2 days' time. It's been quite the record today. Not everything may have worked. Who knows? Here's hoping our editors can do a grand job. But we've loved bringing it to you. Thank you so much for listening to The Final Word. And thank you, of course, to CBUS Super and McInnesWhiskey.com for their support throughout the Champions Trophy. So until the next time, which is in just 2 days' time, when India will be playing Australia in a rematch of the World Cup final, from Fidel and from myself, Daniel, before everything else goes wrong, it's goodbye.
All right. Okay.